Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Shauna Kasegi, and I am the Outreach and Continuing Education Consultant for the Southwest Wisconsin Library System. And today's webinar will be recorded, and I welcome you to ask questions by clicking on the chat button or the Q&A button. We're going to answer questions towards the end, but I'll be keeping an eye out for those. So please ask them as you think of them. And if you do want captions today, click on the Show Captions button, which should be, if you put your mouse towards the bottom of the Zoom bar, you should see a button for that. And today we're gathering for part two of a series that we're calling Local History Questions. Where do you start? In this series, we're offering some places to start based on questions that I commonly get asked of the system. And today we're excited to have Jen Champoux here, join us from the Department of Public Instruction. And lastly, I do encourage you to please register for part 3 of the series. It'll be next week, same day and time, and we'll be talking about digitizing and accessing local history through Recollection Wisconsin. And I'm gonna real quick copy and paste that link to register in the chat. And with that, Jen, are you ready?
I am. Thanks.
All right, take it away.
Thank you. So I just want to double check that you can see my screen and everything is all good
We can
before
see
I
it.
get started. Awesome.
Got it.
Okay. So hello, everyone. I am Jen Champoux, as Shauna said, and I work on the library services team at DPI, where I primarily work on the BadgerLink collection of resources, specifically by providing support and training on using resources in the collection, much like today's session. Newspapers are an excellent source of information for primary source material, as well as historical and current day events. For librarians like yourselves working with genealogists and community members, the online newspaper landscape may seem scattered and complex. In this session, I'm going to hope to clarify accessing online newspapers in Wisconsin, on Wisconsin, and for Wisconsinites. On the library services team, our mission is to empower Wisconsin libraries to best serve their communities by providing vision on library issues, topics, and emerging trends, facilitating connections so libraries can do more together, working to acknowledge unique perspectives to best meet the needs of all, and supporting libraries in their efforts to encourage curiosity and new ideas, allowing them to overcome barriers and solve problems. So we hope that today's session embodies the vision statements and missions seen on this slide. I hope that in sharing the BadgerLink newspaper resources, we can clarify what BadgerLink offers on this particular subject to especially overcome any barriers of content access for your community users' research on their local history. BadgerLink is referred to as Wisconsin's online library, as it provides Wisconsin residents with a collection of licensed, trustworthy databases and online resources. These resources are purchased with state funding and are designed to provide a foundational collection to serve all Wisconsin residents, supporting those available through not only public libraries like you all work in, but also K-12 schools, public and private universities, technical colleges, medical and healthcare facilities, and state agencies. The entire collection of over 60 resources is available from the BadgerLink website at badgerlink.dpi.wi.gov. The collection is meant to span the lifelong learning needs of Wisconsin residents. In addition to BadgerLink's newspaper resources I'm going to talk about today, there are resources with health content like academic journal articles on medical research, resources to help find your next read with recommendations and read-alikes. There's auto repair information and do-it-yourself resources, and general reference and research content in topics such as business, education, history, and science. Now I want to briefly highlight a common source of confusion and clarify something I think may be important to this group. BadgerLink is a collection of online resources, much like this visual on the slide. There are many resources where you and your library users of all ages can find many types of content, one of which is newspapers. Newspapers, however, are not the only type of content found in BadgerLink resources, and BadgerLink is not the only means to access newspapers online. For many folks, the term BadgerLink refers to one particular resource because they are most familiar with that resource or they only use that resource in the BadgerLink collection. But please understand, there are multiple resources we refer to as BadgerLink. And today I'm going to only show and discuss 3 of those resources that are available in the BadgerLink collection. They are Archive of Wisconsin Newspapers, Newspapers.com Library Edition, and US Newsstream. These 3 resources contain newspapers and Wisconsin newspapers in particular. One of the 3 newspaper resources, Archive of Wisconsin Newspapers, contains newspapers content that was digitized through the Historical Newspaper Project that has since completed its life cycle. Although this resource is part of the BadgerLink collection, the resource content was not added by those of us on the library services team at DPI that work on BadgerLink. And that is the case with most BadgerLink resources. The administration and purchase of these resources is carried out by DPI, but the creation of the resource itself and its continued maintenance of the platform and content is provided by the vendor. The links on the slide to the right give the history and current status of the Historical Newspaper Project and microfilm lab work at the Wisconsin Historical Society that provided half of the current content found in Archive of Wisconsin Newspapers that we'll be highlighting today. But that digitization project does not affect the access to the resource Archive of Wisconsin Newspapers and its content of historical coverage being available in the BadgerLink collection. So today I am strictly talking about how to access the online newspapers available right now in Wisconsin, on Wisconsin, and for Wisconsin residents because of past projects like the Historical Newspaper Project. Next week's session, as Shauna mentioned, on February 20th, will be with Kristen Whitson, and we'll discuss the topic of digitizing your community's newspapers and other historical items. So I want to put a plug in for that session and Kristen's great work of the actual digitization that allows resources like Archive of Wisconsin Newspapers to have content from our local libraries and historical societies. And I also want to say, Kristen, good luck. I fumbled digitization, the word, a couple of times there, and I'm so glad that I don't have to say it anymore today. So hopefully you don't have the same problem next week. So to access any of the BadgerLink resources, any Wisconsin resident can go to the BadgerLink website at badgerlink.dpi.wi.gov and select that resources link or URL from a number of places on the site. So for example, you can find the top 3 newspaper resources we will discuss in more detail today on the BadgerLink website's homepage under top resources by selecting the newspapers button. As a Wisconsin library staff person, you can add the same direct resource links used on the BadgerLink website, excuse me, to your own library's website, encouraging your community members to stumble upon these resources when accessing your library's website to find answers to local history questions or even just renew their library books. All the BadgerLink resources direct resource links that are found on the BadgerLink website are also found all in one document on the For Library Staff page under the Getting Started section. And on this link for direct links to resources on that page, you will find a link to a Google Sheet with all the BadgerLink resources listed with their direct resource link that you can then use on your own library website or in your promotional materials or communications or newsletters, anything that you would like to highlight a particular BadgerLink resource or resources. through your own particular materials. When a community user clicks on that direct resource link, if they are at the library using a computer on the library's network, they should be able to access the resource without logging in. So they would click on the resources that we're talking about today and see these go directly to the resource homepage of those resources, as seen on the left side of the slide. If they are at home, they are most likely prompted to log in, and it will look like this screen over here on the right, and they can use their Wisconsin Public Library card to log in and access those resources. And so once they have successfully logged in, they can then select the resource they wish to search in and get to that resource homepage over on the left. Badger Link's newspaper resources may be helpful for genealogy research, Wisconsin history research, or anything you may want to read about involving a person, event, or place. And as I've said, there are 3 newspaper resources we're going to talk about today. And because these 3 newspaper resources have different types of publications within them, it may be tough to know where to start. So understanding their differences is helpful, and hopefully I can clarify that with this little chart here. So Archive of Wisconsin Newspapers has only Wisconsin publications, but both current and historical coverage. Newspapers.com Library Edition has only historical coverage, but not only Wisconsin coverage, but as well as national coverage from other states and other historical newspaper titles. And US Newsstream has mostly current coverage with only historical going back to the 1980s, and mostly national publications with just a few Wisconsin titles. And these are also Wisconsin titles from the largest Wisconsin cities and not the smaller community newspapers that you're going to see in Archive of Wisconsin Newspapers. So oftentimes with historical research, you know of a region or a particular publication that you would like to search within for historical coverage of people, places, and events. And there are Wisconsin newspaper titles found in all 3. So how do you know which to choose to find the Wisconsin title and years of coverage you are looking for? When that is the case, I direct folks to the Wisconsin Newspapers in Badger Link title list to start searching prior to searching within the particular resource. So a link to this title list can be found in the description of each of the Badger Link newspaper resources on the Badger Link website. You can feel free to bookmark this title list. It's a Google Sheet, and you can come back to it anytime with that bookmark. And you can also encourage your library patrons to do the same. You can also share this link, this Google Sheet URL on your own library website to have as a starting point for genealogists and researchers wanting to access Wisconsin newspapers specifically. So I'm going to now click on the link in the slide to the title list so you can see this title list is an alphabetical listing of the newspaper publication by Wisconsin City of the newspaper publication with the dates of coverage, as well as the Badger Link resource. You're going to find those dates of that particular publication. So for instance, if you live in Argyle, one of the first towns listed in the Southwest Library System here, you can see the Pecatonica Valley Leader is here with coverage starting on March 10th of 2005 to 60 days ago. And that coverage is available in Badger Link Resource Archive of Wisconsin Newspapers. And the link to that resource is found right here on the title list in column G. Scrolling further down the list, you can see all the Wisconsin towns with newspapers of varying years of coverage found in at least one of the 3 Badger Link newspaper resources. And there's quite a few. Another example that I wanted to point out, sorry if the scrolling is making a little dizzy, Another example is Prairie du Chien, which has a few titles across varying years of coverage and multiple BadgerLink resources. So the Courier Press is found in Archive of Wisconsin newspapers, but the Prairie du Chien Patriot is, is in newspapers.com Library Edition World Collection, which is another BadgerLink resource that we're going to talk about today. One further thing to note is that the resource link in column G does not take you to that exact title in the resource, but to the resource's homepage. And each newspaper resource has a different looking interface, so it's going to require a different search for each to find each of those years of coverage. So now we're going to talk about each of these newspaper resources individually and take a peek at their interface and how to do searches within each one. So let's start with Archive of Wisconsin Newspapers. This resource provides cover-to-cover newspaper content for over 300 Wisconsin newspapers from 2005 to 60 days ago, plus another 40 newspapers from the 1800s and 1900s, and those 40 newspapers were added through the historical newspaper project I mentioned earlier. Of the over 300 Wisconsin newspapers from 2005 to 60 days ago, these are 16 Southwest Wisconsin newspapers currently available in Archive of Wisconsin newspapers. These are not all the newspaper titles found in this resource, but the ones from Southwest Wisconsin communities in your area. The Wisconsin newspapers in BadgerLink title list shows all the titles available in BadgerLink resources, regardless of Wisconsin region. I simply pulled these titles out to share with you all today, the newspapers that are now available in this resource from your communities in Southwest region of Wisconsin. Because of the Historical Newspaper Project, the following 5 newspapers with the years of coverage included on the slide are available in the Historical Newspaper title search in this resource. In addition to the resource links and title list found on the BadgerLink website for this resource, each resource has training materials that can be viewed now and anytime you're using the resource or sharing these resources with your library patrons. For training materials like webinar recordings and info sheets that provide more details or help after today's session, when you're trying out Archive of Wisconsin newspapers yourself or helping your patrons, please see these links found on the slide, as well as on the BadgerLink website's training page at badgerlink.dpi.wi.gov/training and on the resources page found at badgerlink.dpi.wi.gov/resources. The first training video is a recording of a webinar I provided in November of 2022, where I go through how to navigate the search interface of Archive of Wisconsin newspapers only. The next training recording was a webinar I provided in February of 2023 that reviews all 3 of the BadgerLink newspaper resources and offers brief search examples similar to what we're going to do today in this session. And finally, there is an info sheet with screenshots of the resource homepage and search results with highlights of tips and tricks. And you can feel free to share the URLs to these trainings with your colleagues and your patrons as you see fit. Anything I share today can be reused and recycled as needed. So this next slide gives an example that we will now use to search within the resource itself. Each example I shared today was one that came in through our Ask a Librarian emails. So a real request for research from around the state. I may have just changed the name of the newspaper or the geographical area requested. So this first example is a search in the Fenimore Times for pictures for a mom's retirement party. A patron emailed and was trying to find some images of the mom's workplace to display at the party. And this, again, may not necessarily have been Fenimore exactly, but I think this is a good example of a realistic inquiry from a patron that requires a regional newspaper and would benefit from our newspaper resource here through the Badgerlink collection. So I'm going to do a search within Fenimore Times. And let's say the patron's mother was retiring from the local technical college in Fenimore, Southwest Wisconsin Technical College. And just like you could do on your library website, the logo on the slide has the direct resource URL linked. So I'm going to click there and I'll be directed to the resources homepage. And again, if patrons were at home and they were clicking on that link from your library website, they may be prompted to log in before they get to this homepage of the resource, but they can do that and get in just as, oh my goodness, of course. That would happen while I'm doing a live demo of the resource.
Totally happens.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get it on the second try. Otherwise, we may have to come back after a few minutes to this one. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I'm going to move on to the next one, and hopefully we can come back to Archive of Wisconsin newspapers in a little bit. So let me just go scroll down through my notes here. So next up, we'll talk about newspapers.com Library Edition World Collection. So newspapers.com Library Edition World Collection is a historical newspapers archive from the 1700s to 2000s. And this resource contains thousands of well-known regional, state, and small local newspapers in the United States and other countries. There are ongoing updates and new content continually added. There are 150 Wisconsin newspaper titles currently available in newspapers.com Library Edition, including these 10 from the Southwest region listed on the slide, with the years of historical coverage available in parentheses next to the title. This information is found again on the Wisconsin Newspapers and Badgerlink title list. So this resource has 140 more Wisconsin titles found in this resource, as well as many other states' historical titles. But these are the ones from the Southwest region. Again, for the sake of time today, and so you know where to go when you are searching in these resources or helping your patrons to do so, I want to briefly point out 2 training videos now available on newspapers.com Library Edition from the Badgerlink website's training page and on the resources page. So the first link is a 5-minute video from the vendor ProQuest, who maintains newspapers.com. This brief introduction just goes through a simple search and highlights basic features similar to what we will do today with our example. The next URL here is the same webinar recording I mentioned earlier with Archive of Wisconsin Newspapers training offerings that actually covers all 3 newspaper resources at one time with a search example or 2 in each. So those are the 2 training videos available on newspapers.com. And our example for newspapers.com Library Edition is a patron looking for high school history from Mineral Point, Wisconsin. And again, the link to the logo on this slide is a direct resource URL. So I'm taking this right to the resources homepage with one click. Hopefully it works this time. But also I want to point out that this is so important and would be very helpful to your patrons if you're able to do something like this with your own library website. So they aren't clicking around on the Badgerlink website and lost as to which resource to use. If you can provide a logo or some sort of image and get to the resource in just one click, that will help your patrons out so much. So from the homepage, you can certainly add a keyword or name here with an optional date and location if you know all of that information. And to discover newspaper titles available in the resource, you can select papers up here at the top, which I'm going to do first before we add our keywords and location information from the homepage. So all publications are listed here in alphabetical order, and you can type a paper or location in the search box to narrow down this tens of thousands of results here. I like to click on the location dropdown, and you'll see a map, and then I click on Wisconsin, and that narrows it down to the newspapers available within on Wisconsin. Because our search is for Mineral Point high school history, I'm going to type in Mineral Point up here in the search box where it says filter by location or paper. So these are the papers we'll expect to see in a search for Mineral Point High School, and I can select one paper at a time and type in my search terms, but I'm actually going to just, take this information and go back to the home page and type in my keywords and add my location from here, since I don't want to search in multiple newspapers. So I'm going to type in Mineral Point High School. And I don't have a date specifically right now, but I do know that I want that Wisconsin location, and then click the magnifying glass. And now we can see there's over 1,000 search results here. Excuse me. So once I look at the dates of these search results, and I get a better understanding of what kinds of articles the phrase Mineral Point High School ends up with, I can further narrow down and get better, more narrow results on the history, and hopefully discover when the high school was built, if we don't know that information, or any building updates or name changes, anything like that, based on the newspaper articles we're able to access online in this resource, newspapers.com, library edition. So I'm going to click into this first article. And these digitized newspapers are available in PDF format, so they look just as they did in print. I'm going to go over here right away to zoom out by clicking on the minus button, and you can zoom in clicking on the plus. So you can do a search within the newspaper for names, places, and events, just as you can in Archive of Wisconsin newspapers. You can also save and snip a particular article from a full page, or print full pages or highlighted sections of articles of the PDF pages from here. So when I click on the options in the top right corner, if I click on clip or share or save to Ancestry, they will all give me the same message to sign into a free account. And you can certainly create a free account to do this, but it is absolutely not necessary to access the content in this resource. You can select print and download to save, clip and download pages and articles to your machine, and thus being able to share by attaching downloaded and saved images from your personal computer. So I can select a portion of the page and highlight just the part of the article or an article that I wanted, and then save it as a JPEG, save it as a PDF, or print it. Okay, so if I click on print, it comes up with this print option. If I want to save as a JPEG, it'll go immediately to my, saving on my computer, which is great. And that same thing will happen with an article to save as a PDF. Again, if you would like to register for a free account, feel free to do that. If you have an Ancestry account, you can save to Ancestry through this BadgerLink resource, but you do not need to create an account nor have an account with Ancestry in order to download and print this content to your personal computer and save on your own. So if you don't have any of those things and you don't want to register for a free account, be sure to select the print download option as opposed to the clip, share, and save to Ancestry options. Okay, so as with Archive of Wisconsin newspapers, which we haven't looked at yet, there are some regional newspaper titles in this resource that can be of use to your library patrons in doing their local history research. This resource does have a different interface and a URL directing you to its content. So this is the second of 3 resources that we're going to talk about today. Maybe I will just click back real quick and see if we are able to, oh, okay. Kristen says it's back up. Yay! All right, so let me go back up to what I wanted to talk about here. So from the homepage, let me see. Sorry, just trying to find my spot here. Pardon the interruption. Okay. So we were going to do an example search in the Fenimore Times for pictures of Southwest Wisconsin Technical College. We are back up to speed. Okay. So I'm going to go over some of the features of the resource, and then we're going to do our example patron request search. So the default setting on the homepage of Archive of Wisconsin newspapers is to search from newspapers from 2005 to 60 days ago. If you'd like to search the historical newspapers, you need to be sure to click on the pink box in the upper right corner of the page. So right now, the default setting, of course, is search newspapers of 2005 to 60 days ago whenever you open up the resource. And you can see that there's 327 publications listed here. If I click on search historical newspapers, nothing about the interface looks to be different except for the publications listed, which changed to 47 titles. So there are those 47 historical titles with the years of historical coverage in parentheses behind the title. And all of the same search features and things that I'm going to go over in a minute here are the same for the historical newspaper coverage. You just need to make sure that you're on the historical newspaper search if that's the coverage that you want. Otherwise, it will be from 2005 to 60 days ago by default when you open up the resource. The help button here gives you some tips for using the resource, including search instructions and examples, very similar to what I'll be sharing in a minute. Next to the help button is a link that directs you to the resource page on the BadgerLink website, where you'll find a description of this resource, Archive of Wisconsin Newspapers, as well as access to training materials that I showed in my slide of the training materials for this resource. The newspaper's title link here takes you to a title list for just this resource. I know it looks very similar to the Wisconsin newspapers in BadgerLink title list. So just a couple things to point out that make this one different, besides it just being the publication titles for this resource alone. It also has a county column. It lists the county next to the publication title in column B, as well as the Wisconsin city that the newspaper was published in. The entire title list is alphabetical by the newspaper name rather than the Wisconsin city, like the Wisconsin newspapers and Badger Link title list is. So just a couple of differences, and that the content here is only in the one newspaper resource in Badger Link. And again, that link is right here on this resources homepage. You can also select Ask a Librarian. If you have any questions about using the resource, you can contact us by filling out that form right here from the right side of the page. So here is the main search box where you can type in keywords, names, events, and places. You can add quotes around words to search for exact phrases. So for our example, we would want to do quotations around Southwest Wisconsin Technical College in order for that full phrase to be together. You can also include and to string together search terms, and you can use an asterisk for wildcard searching. So if you want to do LIBRAR asterisk, that'll search library, libraries, librarian, or any other word that starts with those letters. So you can do these sorts of things for your specific keyword searching, and you can mix and match those options as needed. I'm going to leave off the and library search for ours, since we just sort of right now have only the Southwest Wisconsin Technical College piece. But if your patron, if you were talking to the patron in real time and could figure out some additional keywords to add, maybe around the mom's particular job that she's retiring from, or the department that she specifically worked in, those would all be helpful things to include with and in your search. Under range, you can use this option if you're looking for articles from a specific date. Again, I don't have a specific date for my example today, but you can definitely utilize that and include that if that were the case for you. Under location, if you know a general location, you can filter the publications by county, which is the default here, or you can select this little toggle and change it to filtering by city. I'm going to go back to county, and I'm going to select the 5 counties in Southwest Library System. So I'm going to do Crawford and Grant and Iowa and Lafayette and Richland. And as you can see, as I selected them, they all added to the search. If you want to unselect them, then they will be taken off of the search. So you can include more than one county. And I don't know if you noticed, but over here in my list of publications, they were narrowed down to just those publications within those counties. So instead of the over 300, now we have 16 listed. And of those, I just wanted to search in Fenimore Times. So I'm going to select uncheck all and then just click on Fenimore Times. And then I'm going to do that search for Southwest Wisconsin Technical College. So the vendor content provider is working to shorten this processing time on an updated version, but we don't have a timeline for that rollout quite yet. So hopefully later this year, this kind of search wait will be shortened quite a bit. Fingers crossed. Okay, so I want to point out right away this note in red text above the search results, and it states, your search was intentionally stopped because your search criteria is too broad. Try refining your search terms or use date filtering to retrieve a complete set of documents. You may browse through these results, but there are documents missing. So from this, I can surmise that the database is showing me over 300 entries, but since some are missing, I do want to consider narrowing down and perhaps by date, since I did not do that part. And I'm sure that the Fenimore Times has done quite a few articles where Southwest Wisconsin Technical College would show up. So just something to take into consideration when you're working with patrons or doing research yourself. And this note shows up quite a bit, quite often. So just something to be aware of. But we do have search results and quite a few, so I'm just going to highlight those so that we can move forward. Okay, so let's take a look at these search results and highlight how to save a page in an article. So if you hover over the picture of the newspaper over here on the right, the small sort of newspaper icon, then it shows up in the larger viewer on the left. If you want to download the page right away, you can click on the Adobe PDF icon to download it as an Adobe PDF, or you can download it using the Google Documents icon, and the whole page will download into either your Google Docs or onto your machine as a PDF. Above the download option is the page number and the date. And to the left, you can see the title of the newspaper. You can also see some of the text from the article below the title of the newspaper. And to see where your search terms are on the page, you can click on the hyperlink and it highlights it in green on the newspaper. And you can left click your mouse and sort of move it around and zoom in and out using the green sort of toggle up here at the top in the large viewer. The printer icon in the large viewer gives you the option to download the full page or article, and to print it or to email it. And in clicking the printer icon, if you are able to just clip an article like we were able to in newspapers.com, where you can just left click your mouse and hold and widen and shape the sort of highlighted portion to the article content you want to save rather than the entire page. So you can select whether you want to print or download the article. And again, that goes right to how to save it on my machine. You can download a full PDF to Google Docs. You can download a full PDF to your machine, or you can email it to yourself using the printer icon option on the large viewer in Archive of Wisconsin Newspapers. And this other little icon underneath the printer just makes it so that it fills the page, this particular page, and then you can, page of the newspaper, and then you can use that green toggle again to zoom in and out. So for the sake of time, that's all I'm going to show for that one. Again, that is Archive of Wisconsin Newspapers, and you can always find the asynchronous training offerings to view anytime if you would like to see more with that particular resource after today. And we already did the newspapers.com slides. So now we are on the third and final one, US Newsstream. US Newsstream is current and archival to the 1980s US news, featuring key national and regional sources, including the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, Los Angeles Times, Boston Globe, Newsday, and Chicago Tribune, as well as over 80 Gannett titles. Unfortunately, there is not specific newspaper titles found in this resource that are from the Southwest Wisconsin region. But there are national newspapers with current day coverage that could be of use to your library patrons in a different way than historical newspapers may be. Something like hitting a paywall with the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal can be very frustrating to patrons in any region of Wisconsin or the nation. So being able to access current day, same day coverage of those newspaper articles is very helpful for our BadgerLink users and Wisconsin residents. Again, for the sake of time, I'm going to point to 2 videos and 1 info sheet that offer detailed searches and asynchronous learning about this newspaper resource available on the BadgerLink website's training page and resource page. So the first video is about 2.5 minutes from the vendor ProQuest, similar to the newspapers.com one. It's just a quick basic search that offers brief highlights of this resource's content and features. The second video is the same one I mentioned with the other 2 resources that goes into detail on all 3 newspaper resources in BadgerLink. And then this info sheet was created to highlight specifically how to find a newspaper title in the publication search within this resource, because it's a different interface than the other 2 newspaper resources. So we'll have a bit of different navigation to get you to your newspaper title if you know what you would like to see. Our example is searching for the obituary of famous Wisconsinite Gaylord Nelson. U.S. Newsstream provides access to Wisconsin State Journal among its publications, so we're going to search within that particular title for the Nelson obit. And I'm going to click on the ProQuest logo again to direct me to the U.S. Newsstream homepage. So you can do a search in the main box across all the national coverage it has, or you can select publications at the top to do a publication search. So I'm going to start by trying a search for Gaylord Nelson, in quotation marks, and obituary right here on the resource homepage, and see the number of publications we encounter. So looks like right here at the very beginning, we get the Los Angeles Times obit. We get the New York Times obit. And then it starts to get kind of weird, where we're not really seeing necessarily obituaries for Gaylord Nelson. There's another one from New Jersey by the Record. And then more where it just doesn't seem like it's really about him and his obituary. There's another one down here from Dubuque, Iowa, the Telegraph Herald. But not not super great, not super relevant search results. I'm going to open this first one just to show you how it looks and how it differs. So as you can see, it looks much different than the other 2 newspaper resources. This is not a PDF image of how this newspaper looked in print. It also isn't the same experience as going to the newspaper's online site either. This is a database with newspaper articles, so each article in the publication is a separate record with the full content of the article and may include photos, but it's less likely to have them than the other 2 newspaper resources we've already looked at. However, just like those resources up here on the left, we can save and print the content, and actually within this particular resource, we can use a citation tool to cite it as well. So I'm going to go back to the homepage and try searching from a particular publication now. Like we said, we wanted to do a search within Wisconsin State Journal. So I'm going to put in that publication. You do not want to put in article titles or keyword searches here. This is the publication search, so we want to type in a publication title here. And then we click search. And you can see years of coverage here in our search results and the place of publication right here from this page. So upon selecting this publication record, I can then search within the publication, and that's where you can type in the keywords or an article title, or select an issue by date. So from here, I'm going to do my same search for Gaylord Nelson and obituary. And again, as with the other search, I'm not really seeing the official obit with this search. I am seeing articles with the title obituaries, and that's where I can view more than one person's published obituary at a time, since it's just sort of the section of the paper titled obituaries. So that's interesting, but not for my particular search that I'm doing today. So I'm going to go up here at the top and I'm going to remove and obituary and just leave Gaylord Nelson in quotation marks and that information that says I'm searching in Wisconsin State Journal, and see if I can come up with the official obit with this search. So these first couple hits I'm not seeing again. And I think that because I'm not seeing it, I kind of need more information. Again, as with our other two searches, where a date would probably be most helpful if I knew the date that he died, which I do, just, from knowledge that I had prior to the search. And so I know that it was July 3rd of 2005. So in searching for that particular date within these search results, I'm seeing that this one here is probably most likely the official obit, and it has the years of his life and a very, you know, uh, specific title and things like that. So if I were to select this particular article and read it, I consider this to be the official obituary for Gaylord Nelson that was published in the Wisconsin State Journal. And again, you can save and cite and print, though this article does look different from the content in the other two resources. All of the full text of the article itself is here and able to be saved and printed and cited. Okay, so a quick recap of these three newspaper resources accessible through BadgerLink. Which BadgerLink newspaper resource do you use? For Archive of Wisconsin newspapers, remember Wisconsin only, current and historical. Remember newspapers.com is historical only, but Wisconsin and national coverage. US Newsstream is mostly current day coverage and mostly national, not as many Wisconsin titles there. And you can learn more about tips and tricks when exploring these resources for yourself or sharing them with your patrons at the BadgerLink website. I'm going to click on this link and show you the BadgerLink website. The training page has training offerings, videos, and info sheets on many of the BadgerLink resources, not just the newspaper resources, but also the health resources, the hobbies and crafts and DIY project resources, Britannica, encyclopedia resources. There's training offerings for resources for homework help for your students in K-12 and higher education. All the resources in the BadgerLink collection really have some type of training offering available to view alongside the resource itself. So I highly encourage you to take a look at that page when in conjunction with sort of exploring these resources that we talked about today. The resource pages for the three resources I highlighted today have the training links I share in the slides available there too. So As you can see, Archive of Wisconsin Newspapers has the description and then the trainings down below if you scroll a little bit. Same with newspapers.com Library Edition. And US Newsstream. And as with the direct resource links, we hope you see these Badger Link resource pages as a sort of model for your own library web pages as to what information to share with your patrons about the resources and the trainings and the Wisconsin newspapers and Badger Link title list, for instance. So just hopefully that's the kind of information that you can then translate over to your own library website where your patrons are already going. And so now that you know all about the BadgerLink newspaper resources, you may be asking yourself, what about other online newspapers? And what about newspaper resources that are not included in the BadgerLink collection, or newspaper titles that are digitized but not accessible through one of these three resources? And I get that question often in support emails and phone calls and at trainings like this one. And I refer many folks that can't find the newspaper they're looking for in BadgerLink resources to the Wisconsin Historical Society. And these are the three sort of areas of the Historical Society that I most often refer them to. Excuse me. Starting with the Historical Society newspaper collections guide. This is a helpful organized tool that shares the broader landscape of online newspapers, both Wisconsin and national titles. The resources listed here include BadgerLink resources, especially under Wisconsin newspapers online. They include BadgerLink resources, but they also include national grant-funded projects like Chronicling America, which, as it says here, is a free database that can be used anywhere. Ooh, I'm sorry, hang on a sec. Okay, I hope that does it for me. So there are, oh, no, it's not going to do it. Hang on.
I appreciate you taking care of yourself, Jen.
Yeah, no problem. I always get this at like exactly an hour. I can't talk for this long, and that's okay.
It is,
I
yeah.
probably shouldn't. So sorry, the third resource I'm going to point out just real quick is there are resources listed that can only be used when in the library of the Wisconsin Historical Society because they purchase a subscription to that product, like the BadgerLink resources are purchased with state funding. So this third resource that they list here, Newspaper Archive, is an example of that. And this is a resource that's not available through BadgerLink, but it can be purchased by a library to provide access to their patrons. And library users at the library can access content on the library's network. So those are kind of the three types of resources that you can find through this guide that, available through BadgerLink and then available for free nationwide and then available through the Historical Society subscriptions. I'm not going to go into this guide more than that, but I do encourage you to take a look and explore what the Historical Society offers for their collections and access to other collections in addition to BadgerLink. The Wisconsin Historical Society also has a comprehensive guide to Wisconsin newspapers from 1833 to 2004. And I'd like to point out this document because it shows all Wisconsin newspapers from the years, their titles, and history of name changes, all of this information that's so important and helpful to genealogists, local historians, and librarians like yourself to have this information in one place. And regardless of if these newspapers are being digitized and available online, there's a record of their publication here. So again, this is a key document that I refer folks to from the Wisconsin Historical Society their guide to Wisconsin newspapers. And then finally, the Wisconsin Historical Society is able to work with Wisconsinites regardless of where they are in Wisconsin, and even offer genealogy research and resources to non-Wisconsinites. So they offer this article request service that I always refer non-Wisconsinites to, since many genealogists all over the country need access to Wisconsin newspapers for their family history research. BadgerLink resources are only to be used by Wisconsin residents because they are purchased with state funding. However, all the online newspaper resources outside of BadgerLink are not restricted in this way. So the Wisconsin Historical Society works with non-Wisconsinites and can provide articles by request or for a small fee. And so to learn more about any one of these links on the slide, I recommend reaching out to the Historical Society directly. Their emails are listed here: ask a library at wisconsinhistory.org and ask archives at wisconsinhistory.org. I refer folks to these three services through them and to those emails. And so they are very willing and able to help with newspaper needs and access outside of BadgerLink resources. And to learn more about BadgerLink resources, please reach out to me anytime using our Ask a Librarian form. And for BadgerLink support and general help with access to your libraries, please use our Contact Us form. We ask that you use our forms because they reach more than just me. So if I'm out of the office for whatever reason, you'll be able to get a hold of my colleague, Elizabeth Newman, or any one of the DPI Library Services teammates I have, so that your request doesn't go unanswered. And I want to thank Shauna and Southwest Library System for inviting me to speak today. And thank you all for your time and attention to online newspapers at your library. I'm happy to take lots of drinks of water and answer any questions from here.
Thank you so much, Jen.
Yeah, I know it was a lot of information, so.
It always is.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's somebody here today. If you will, first of all, yes, please ask any questions right now. And if for some reason, which is okay, if you're not having a question, I'm just curious if you can describe an example of how you might have gotten stuck in the past. I can imagine it just being a little overwhelming sometimes when I think any kind of like tricky reference question can throw someone off guard. Sometimes you also just need a lot of time to understand, especially like on this topic. Okay, well, where might that live? And so if someone who's here today has an example of a time they've gotten stuck, I welcome you to share it with us if you'd like to, or any other questions you might have. We have thank yous in the chat. It is a lot to absorb. I appreciated, Jen, any kind of like distinctions that you made. Sometimes that's in the form of graphs or tables, I mean,
right.
or like just demonstration. Judy writes, had a caller from a different county request a copy of a historical Potosi newspaper, and I didn't even know we had one. Nice. Good example. Yeah.
So I always I start out in that most often in that Wisconsin newspapers and BadgerLink title list. Like I said, that's where I go first. That's right away with any sort of inquiry about a Wisconsin newspaper, and if it's available in BadgerLink, this is where I go. And because it's listed by Wisconsin City, I would just go down to Potosi and see what we have available there. And we have the Potosi Republican from 1847 to 1855, which is just such a like odd, small range. But it's there, it's available. And it's available in newspapers.com library edition world collection. And so I would click there, or direct the patron to that resource and say that those years of coverage are there, that particular title, and then encourage them to, plug in their ancestors' names, or an event, or what have you, whatever they're looking for within that particular publication, and then you're off, to the races, so to speak, as far as um, researching. And it's just sort of like, where do I start? There's so many resources and so much coverage. Just getting them into that kind of first step is what happens a lot. And then I don't hear from people after that, because I hope that they're just sort of off in their various tangents, and getting their research that they need.
Yeah, thanks for that example.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, thanks, Judy.
any other questions or examples you'd like to share if you're here today? I also liked how Jen pointed out how you can ask a librarian. If you do get stuck, there are folks to ask for help. I'm here for sure at the system. If you need any assistance, there's lots of help out there, because we know
For
it can be
sure.
a little,
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? We really appreciate your time, Jen, today,
Yeah.
including navigating a website that was broken and then came back to life. That was great.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
did
it's
it.
it's funny, yeah, how
You
that
never
always
know.
seems to happen, yeah.
You never
Um,
know.
yeah.
And I think this is
Um,
a good reminder to check your website. You know,
yeah.
what kinds of buttons do you have on your library's website? Do you think that there's something that you could put there that would help others not even have to ask?
Mhm.
Um, check that link. Were you going to say something, Jen, before I
No, no.
was talking about buttons?
No, no, I think
Okay.
that that's a great, it was nice to be able to show some ways that it can go wrong. And I tried to include searches where, it's not perfect. It's not always like you're going to get that answer right away. So kind of getting more information from your patron, or figuring out more information that you need to just sort of find, to have good search results, and to discover more information based on those search results. It's a process with everyone. So hopefully the the examples today kind of made you want to explore more, or made you kind of want to um, see about things, and figure out, and research. I know we're all librarians, and we all would love to, we all love to like dig into these various um, hunts and mysteries. So hopefully it's exciting, and not necessarily well, just feels like a lot more work.
Yeah, and there's some great links, here to bookmark for yourself if you want to.
Yes, yes,
And I'll
definitely.
be sending out Jen's slides
Yes,
as a follow-up email to you. So be on the lookout for that. Just another plug to remind you in the chat that we'll
yes,
be here again next week at the same time, talking about digitizing and accessing local history, and you can register there. Um, and I see no more questions, so we can stop there today.
awesome.
Thanks again, Jen, and thank you all
Yeah,
for being here. And maybe we'll see you next week. And with that, take care.
thanks.